Now, since Heather's passing, I have been vilified. I have been spoken about. I've been put down. I've been accused of ridiculous things by people who have promised her they would be there for me. Now, I'm going to start by saying something that is upsetting and potentially shocking for a lot of people. Now, I do have to state that I'm not saying this to tarnish reputations. I'm not saying this to try and upset anybody. I'm saying it because I've been carrying this secret for a long time, and it is not mine to carry. I have like I say, I've been treated terribly by people who and a lot of them know this. A lot of them already know this. Now, I do have to state, whether you believe me or not, I do forgive Heather. I've forgiven Heather a long time. She was a human being. We all make mistakes. But it's not, it's not my secret. Why should I carry it? Why should I carry the secret of somebody who's no longer here? It's not fair. So the sad truth is that the day after Heather passed away, after she insisted that I had a phone, her family requested the photos of it for the funeral. Now, please bear in mind that the funeral did not happen till over a month later. On that phone, I found a lot of pictures, videos, messages that confirmed Heather was a liar and a cheat. Now, despite one of her best friends claiming that she didn't think Heather would have wanted me to find this out, a lot of that stuff was redacted, and she was insistent I had it. Now, her friend, one of her best friends, confirmed that she knew about this. The several occasions. You can call me a liar, but I have voice notes of me and her best friend having conversations about it. Most of her family and close friends are aware of this now. Whether or not they were at the time, I don't know. And finding out that I had not only married a dying woman at a hospice, spent my wedding day on a hospice floor, on a pull-out bed, and becoming a widower a month later, it was all a sham. It was all a lie. Now, like I say, I do forgive Heather, and I have done for a long time now, because she was human. However, I'm not prepared to carry that secret anymore. Now, due to this, as you can imagine, it completely changed me as a person. As I often say, I had a personality transplant. I thought, why am I staying quiet? Why am I holding back? Why am I letting other people get what they want? This led me to want to move on with my life. And it's fair to say, not long after that, I did get in another relationship. Now, I can understand why it upset people, and I can. But they knew the truth, and they still decided to vilify me. They still decided to talk behind my back, despite knowing the truth. Now, I've been left with nothing. I've been left looking after Heather's 3 cats on very little budget. I've had no support to take in those animals. I've had to block people out of my life because of the subtle social media digs, despite them knowing the truth. Despite them knowing the truth. They just could not let me get on with my life. And it's wrong and it's unfair. And I'm not prepared to take that, to be honest with you. Now, as I said in part one, you know, you could say, oh, he's just after the money and now it's all coming out and there's no money. Please bear in mind that I went into that meeting and I fought with everything that I had for Heather. Because despite what she had done to me, despite the lies, I loved her. I loved her with all my heart. Now, the sad fact is, when you find out something like that, you don't miss that person like a lover. You don't miss that person like a wife. You miss that person like a friend. It changes it. It has to. Now, I'm fully aware that it would have broken most people, but it didn't me, because I refused. I refused to be treated that way and to nosedive. Now, ironically, because I refused to nosedive, that triggered people. They didn't like it. The sad fact is that they wouldn't have been able to bounce back. So rather than going, my God, you're so strong, they tried to pull me apart. Now, Heather's mum did offer to come to that meeting with me and I refused. I refused because I was the only person that was with Heather from start to finish of that process. Now, to be fair, for the first month or so, before we knew it was cancer, Heather didn't want her family to know she was in hospital. So they weren't present during the screaming nights. They weren't present when we were in and out of A&E. And that's not their fault. Knowing how horrific that meeting was going to be, and with one of Heather's dying wishes in the hospice, turning round to me in front of her friends and family and saying, Richard, not mum, not siblings, not best friend, Richard, you have to fight this. I knew it was my responsibility as her husband. Now, I knew how horrific it was going to be, and I could not put her through that. Couldn't put her through it. However, the day after I got that admission, that is when the I think we should fight this as a family came in. Now, most people say that's a nice offer, but when people are banding around delusional amounts of money that they think is going to be coming through, it starts to ring alarm bells. Now, I'm going to move on to the lack of support from my family. As many of you know, I haven't spoken or seen to my mum or that side of the family for many years. I'm not going to go into that, but I just wanted to quash any potential rumours or questions to why my dad wasn't present at the wedding and wasn't present at the funeral, and why I no longer choose to have contact or communication with him. Just prior to the wedding, he had come up to look after the animals whilst I was at the hospice. And on my return, I found out, because I'd talked about putting in the complaint, he knew about it. He knew about it because he had been through my post. He'd gone through my post that was on the side and read it. Now, to this day, he still cannot see what the issue is, because in his mind, it was there. So it was perfectly fine to read. I didn't want him there. And I felt it was more important to have that space available to one of Heather's friends or family members than somebody who is going to openly admit and have no shame in regard to what is basically breaking the law. He didn't come to the funeral, although I did invite him. I didn't want him there, but he didn't want to come to the funeral because he wouldn't know anybody and he had to give his best friend a trailer. Now, just prior to that, a couple of days before Heather's passing, there was a bit of a false alarm set off by one of her family members due to some miscommunication with one of the staff members at Ashgate Hospice that Heather was in the process of dying. As such, I invited my dad to, asked my dad if he'd come up and look after the animals. Now, he called me whilst I was at the hospice, waiting to find if Heather was dying, after having conversations with some of her best friends to say that it could be time, to say that he could not see the cat food which was directly in front of his face. Now, as you can probably imagine, the pressure cooker situation that I was in, I lost my temper with him. Now, all I said was, Dad, I need you to get a fucking grip. My wife is dying. Now, this was clearly so offensive to him that the following day when I returned to get a shower and hope to get some sleep, I came back to find the cat litter trays absolutely piled up. The plate's still on the floor. After walking the dog and cleaning up, he eventually came down in an absolute foul mood. I asked him what the fuck was wrong with him. He had a pop at me about taking the foil off a milk carton, and then proceeded to say he didn't like the way I spoke to him, and you know, he's my father. Anyway, as you can imagine, that erupted into a giant argument, which included 40 odd years of lack of interest in his son, lack of any kind of emotional support. Anyway, he did try to attempt in his feeble way to offer some kind of support after that, which included a text every morning and every night, and to the point where I said, it's getting a little bit much now, you don't need to do this. And he was relieved because he wasn't sure what to do. Being in the situation that I am in, I don't have much time to see people as it is, so I've focused on my work. Now, he came to stay with me Christmas Day 2023. Bear in mind, this was my first Christmas as a widower. With very little money, I asked him to bring some food and drink to help out. He bought himself a 2-pint bottle of milk and some cereal. He ignored me the whole day. I had to try and make conversation. It does have to be stated that he does not know about the lying and cheating because A, he's never really wanted to ask how I've been, and B, despite getting to that point where I was going to tell him, he then did that. He ignored me. Now, skip forward several months later, when I was facing yet another traumatic period in my life, which I will come to, and I was being evicted through no fault of my own, due to the last landlord wanting the house back and being given 2 months to move out. He refused to be a guarantor. Now, I do have to state that he did give me some money for moving, and I'm very grateful for that. However, he refused to be a guarantor. He again became agitated with me because I faced eviction, and he refused. I didn't ask, but on one call, he, before I'd said much, said I couldn't live there. He couldn't have cats living in his house again. As you can imagine, I'm done. And if you're seeing this, Dad, I'm sorry, I'm done. You've treated me like absolute shit. Absolute shit. And this is the support. This is the support I have received during this time. I hope these people are ashamed of themselves. I really, really am. It's easy to victim blame. It's easy to get triggered. Now, the sad fact of this is, as I said a moment ago, these people cannot stand the fact that if they went through what I've been through, they wouldn't be standing right now. And it's as simple as that.